There is a number that keeps appearing in every headline right now. A number that has stopped people in their tracks, made grown adults break down in tears, and sparked a question that no one, not even her closest family, knew the full answer to. $650 million. That is what Dolly Parton left behind when she passed away on August 25, 2026, at the age of 80. And before you dismiss that figure as just another celebrity net worth statistic, I need you to stay right here, because the story of how she built that fortune, what she planned to do with it, and the jaw-dropping mystery that surrounds where it all goes now, is one of the most extraordinary tales you will ever hear. This is not just a story about money. This is a story about a little girl who slept 4 to a bed in a one-room mountain cabin, who sang into a tin can because she couldn't afford a microphone, and who somehow, against every single odd stacked against her, built an empire worth more than the GDP of a small nation. So let me ask you this before we go any further. When was the last time someone with nothing became someone with everything, and then quietly decided to give most of it away? That is the Dolly Parton story, and it's only just beginning. The cabin that started it all. To understand the magnitude of what Dolly Parton left behind, you first have to understand what she started with. And that answer is almost nothing. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19, 1946, the fourth of 12 children to Robert and Avie Lee Parton. She was raised in Locust Ridge, just outside of Sevierville, Tennessee, living in a remote one-room cabin that had no water or no electricity. 12 people, one room, no running water, no electricity. Not a luxury stripped away, a luxury never possessed in the first place. Dolly and 3 or 4 of her siblings would often sleep in the same bed, huddled together for warmth. And yet, even in that overcrowded, freezing mountain cabin, something was burning inside young Dolly. A fire that no amount of poverty could put out. She described how she would stand on the front porch, put a tobacco stick through a crack in the porch boards, and sing her little heart out, using it like a makeshift microphone while dreaming of one day performing at the Grand Ole Opry. Let that image settle for a second. A child so poor, her microphone was a tin can, dreaming of stages she had never seen. And do you know what she did about it? She went and built them. Even Parton's birth carries a symbolic reminder of the world she came from. She was delivered by a local doctor who reportedly accepted payment in the form of cornmeal, a detail often shared to illustrate just how deeply rooted her beginnings were in rural poverty and barter-based survival. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, could neither read nor write. He was an illiterate sharecropper who later bought a small tobacco farm. Parton has often commented that he was one of the smartest people she ever knew. That paradox, the brilliant mind imprisoned by illiteracy, would become one of the driving forces of Dolly Parton's entire life. It's what inspired her greatest achievement, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, the music. The day Nashville changed forever. The day after Dolly Parton graduated from high school in 1964, she packed a single bag and boarded a bus to Nashville. She was 18 years old. She had no connections, no money, and no guarantee that anyone would give her a second glance. But Nashville did give her a second glance, and then a third, and then it couldn't look away. Her folksy wisdom and sincere lyrics went alongside her eye-popping backwoods Barbie image, which she accentuated with blonde wigs and form-fitting dresses. She often joked of herself, "It costs a lot to make a person look this cheap." That combination, the wit, the look, the voice, was completely unlike anything Nashville had seen, and it made her a phenomenon. But here's the part most people overlook. Dolly Parton was not just a singer. She was a business strategist operating in rhinestones. Every hit song, every TV appearance, every deal she signed was a chess move in a game she was always 5 steps ahead of. Her legendary decision to retain ownership of her musical works became central to her financial stability. Her song catalog, featuring over 3,000 compositions, including the timeless "I Will Always Love You," is valued at roughly $120 million. This ownership ensures that every time her music is streamed, covered, or used in a film, the royalties flow directly back into the Parton estate rather than a corporate label. Think about that. Over 3,000 songs, and every single note still earning. Every cover version, every movie soundtrack, every commercial, every streaming play at 3 a.m. by someone who just needs to hear that voice. All of it flowing back to Dolly. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and I want you to pay very close attention to this next part. When Whitney Houston recorded "I Will Always Love You," and it became one of the best-selling singles in history, most people assumed Dolly must have been thrilled for her friend. She was, but she was also doing something far more calculated in the background. She was watching the royalty checks roll in, because she owned that song, every version of it, forever. That, right there, is the difference between being talented and being wealthy. Dolly Parton was both. Building the empire. By the time the world caught on to what Dolly Parton was doing financially, it was already too late to underestimate her. The woman had quietly constructed one of the most diverse entertainment empires in American history, and she'd done it with a smile and a laugh that made people forget she was the shrewdest person in any room she walked into. Let's break down what she built, because the numbers are staggering. First, Dollywood. Located in Tennessee's Smoky Mountains, Dollywood attracts approximately 3 million visitors annually. Parton's stake in the theme park has been valued at an estimated $165 million. 3 million people a year, walking through the gates of a dream that began in a one-room cabin, and every single one of them paying for the privilege. But Dollywood wasn't just a theme park, it was an ecosystem. Dollywood grew from a theme park into a resort destination. Dreammore Resort and Spa opened in 2015, followed by Heart Song Lodge and Resort in 2023, extending the storytelling, hospitality, and sense of place beyond the park gates. And just 2 months before her death, in June 2026, Parton took her approach to themed hospitality somewhere very different. Dolly's Tennessean travel stop opened on Interstate 65 south of Nashville, a 25,000-square-foot destination that reimagined an existing travel center with Parton's personality throughout. She was still building. At 80 years old, still dreaming, still expanding. Then there was her music publishing business, her television and film work, her licensing agreements, her perfume lines, her book deals, including a novel co-written with James Patterson, and her merchandise empire that stretched across every age group and demographic in America. With a projected net worth of $650 million as of 2026, Dolly Parton was considered the wealthiest country music artist in the industry. Her expansive financial portfolio included a diverse array of income streams: theme parks, music publishing, television and film opportunities, licensing deals, and charitable organizations. The wealthiest country music artist of all time. And she grew up sleeping 4 to a bed. But here is the question that no one is asking loudly enough. If she earned that much, where did the rest of it go? Because the math doesn't fully add up. And when you discover why, that's the moment this story changes everything. The money she chose not to keep. Despite her immense success, Dolly Parton famously avoided billionaire status through intentional and massive philanthropy. By choosing to invest millions into her imagination library and various medical research initiatives, she prioritized impact over capital accumulation. She chose not to be a billionaire. Read that sentence again. She chose it. She deliberately redirected money that could have made her one of the wealthiest women on the planet, and poured it into other people's lives instead. And none of it was more personal than the Imagination Library. Since 1995, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library program has delivered meticulously chosen, personalized, age-appropriate books every month to children up to 5 years old, all free of charge. Parton's charitable endeavor, first launched in her native Sevier County in the foothills of Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains, was inspired by her hardworking, wise, yet functionally illiterate father. Do you see it? The little girl who watched her brilliant father suffer because he could not read? The little girl who dreamed into a tin can microphone? She grew up and made sure no other child would ever have to live with that particular kind of heartbreak. By 2025, the Imagination Library had distributed more than 270 million books. 270 million. That is not philanthropy on a celebrity scale. That is a movement. That is a legacy so profound it will outlast every chart position, every award, every dollar in her estate. And she didn't stop there. When a deadly wildfire swept through the Smokies in 2016, she held an all-star telethon and set up a foundation that sent monthly checks to residents whose homes were damaged or destroyed. She provided $1 million for the research that helped create the Moderna vaccine for COVID-19 during the 2020 global pandemic. After Hurricane Helene caused devastating floods in her East Tennessee homeland in 2024, Parton donated $1 million to assist flood victims. And then, and this is the detail that truly floors people, she received $100 million from Jeff Bezos for charity. $100 million, the largest single philanthropic gift she ever received. And instead of pocketing a cent of it, she directed it outward. In 2022, Parton was honored with the Carnegie Medal of Philanthropy for her decades of good deeds. "I just give from my heart," she said at the ceremony. "I never know what I'm going to do or why I'm going to do it. I just see a need, and if I can fill it, then I will." That is not the language of a billionaire calculating their charitable tax deductions. That is something else entirely. The love story that shaped everything. Now we need to talk about Carl, because you cannot tell the story of Dolly Parton's fortune without telling the story of Carl Thomas Dean, the man who was at the center of her world for over 60 years, and whose death in 2025 set off the final, most heartbreaking chapter of her life. Dolly and Carl met outside the wishy-washy laundromat the day she moved to Nashville at 18. They married 2 years later on May 30th, 1966, in a small ceremony. Dolly and Carl kept their relationship very private, and she only shared a handful of photos of her husband over the years. Carl Dean was, by every account, the opposite of Dolly Parton in the most complimentary way imaginable. She was sequins and spotlights. He was quiet and private. He attended one industry event with her early in their marriage, came out pulling off his tuxedo and tie, and reportedly told her never to ask him to attend another one. She never did. For almost 6 decades, that was their agreement. She owned the stage. He owned the silence. And somehow, it was perfect. Carl Dean died on March 3, 2025. He left behind an estimated $20 million in fortune built through decades of private business ownership and long-term investments in Nashville real estate and construction-related industries. 7 months after his death, his will became public. Carl was 82 when he passed away, and according to court documents filed by Dolly, Her late husband left behind a will signed on January 16, 2013, that was never amended. Dolly is the trustee of the Carl Thomas Dean Trust, the sole beneficiary of his estate. She was set to inherit all of Carl's right, title, and interest in any personal effects relating to her music and entertainment career, including pictures, costumes, jewelry, musical instruments and equipment, as well as all interest in furniture, art, automobiles, and other items. He never spoke to the press. He never gave an interview. He never attended an awards show again after that one night with the tuxedo. But through his will, signed 12 years before his death and never once changed, Carl Dean told the whole world exactly how he felt about Dolly Parton. He left her everything, every single thing he had. And here is what that detail reveals about the man. Carl's will also noted that if Dolly had passed before him, his estate would have been distributed equally among his and Dolly's nieces and nephews. He had 5, and Dolly had 14. He had thought of everyone, quietly, without fanfare, in the most private way possible. Parton took to Instagram after the will documents emerged to share a health update, explaining to fans how Carl's illness and eventual death had affected her own health. "I want you to know that I'm okay," she reassured them. "I've got some problems." She was not okay. Not really. A woman who had spent 60 years sharing her life with a man she met at a laundromat? How could she be okay? She loved Carl Dean with every molecule of her enormous heart. And losing him, it seems, began the slow unraveling of her own health that ultimately led to her own passing just 17 months later. The final year, and the questions left unanswered. During 2025 and 2026, Dolly Parton experienced a series of health setbacks that led her to postpone and eventually cancel a planned Las Vegas residency and miss several public appearances. But she never stopped working, not entirely. Even in her final year, Parton continued developing new ventures. Her projects included a Nashville hotel and museum, branded food and beverage products, new Dollywood attractions, and the expansion of her tourism businesses. She was also co-writing a stage story based on her life that she hoped would land on Broadway in late 2026. Think about that. A woman in her final year of life, battling health issues, still plotting her Broadway debut, still dreaming, right up until the very end. And then, on August 25, 2026, the same morning this script was being written, Dolly Parton died at the age of 80. Her nephew, Brian Seaver, announced the news in an Instagram video the same day, saying, "My name is Brian Seaver, son of Cassie Parton, and I'm representing the Parton and Owens family today, announcing the passing of my aunt, Dolly Rebecca Parton Dean, sister, sis, and granny to one generation, and Gigi to the next." He continued, "This video announcement is something Dolly asked of me years ago, before I fully absorbed it as a future reality. As her head of security for more than 2 decades, a role my father Larry held before me, I have imagined the heaviness of this moment, but haven't truly felt it until now." Dolly has lived in the light and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by Carl, her parents, and countless others who have watched her and longed to meet her in the heavens. The Parton and Owens families asked for privacy. The world gave them about 30 seconds before it erupted in grief. And now, right now, at this very moment, the question that everyone is circling around, but nobody can fully answer yet, is this: what happens to the $650 million? The fortune. No one can claim yet. Here is where the story gets genuinely tense, because as of right now, Parton's will has not been made public. $650 million. No public will. No public beneficiary. No announcement. What we do know is this: In 2020, Parton told Billboard that she was working with an estate lawyer to build out a will, and her manager said they did so with her legacy in mind, which means she will likely give a lot of her money away to noble causes. With her legacy in mind. Those 4 words carry enormous weight. Because Dolly Parton's legacy is not a theme park or a song catalog, her legacy is what she did with the money she earned. The 270 million books, the wildfire victims, the COVID research, the flood relief, the scholarships, the programs, the people. There is no indication of a vast personal fortune being set aside for a singular, traditional heir. Her nieces and nephews, numbering in the double digits, are certainly close to her. Many of them have been involved in her businesses and personal life, some working at Dollywood, others as part of her personal entourage. Reports had circulated that Dolly Parton was actively arranging the distribution of her $650 million estate to minimize family disputes, described as a pragmatic and detailed plan that followed reported family losses and her own health concerns. Pragmatic, detailed, designed to eliminate confusion. That sounds exactly like Dolly Parton, the woman who planned her own death announcement years in advance, recording a video request for her nephew so that when the moment came, it would be handled with dignity and love rather than chaos. She thought of everything. She always did. But here is what is almost certain, based on everything she said and did throughout her life. A significant portion of that $650 million is going somewhere that will continue to change lives long after every headline about her passing has faded from the internet. Because that is the Dolly Parton way. You don't keep what you have. You multiply it, and you give it back. What $650 million looks like in human terms. Let's stop for a moment and really sit with this number, because $650 million is almost impossible to conceptualize. So let me help. Dolly Parton had a net worth of $650 million at the time of her death. She had released 48 solo studio albums, won 11 Grammy Awards, sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and written over 3,000 songs. That is 3,000 songs. Sit with that for a moment. The average person writes 0 songs in their entire lifetime. Dolly Parton wrote 3,000, and then she owned every single one of them. Her Dollywood stake alone, that theme park she opened in 1986 in the hills where she grew up, is worth an estimated $165 million. That means the girl who had nothing built something in her own backyard worth more than most people will see in 100 lifetimes. And then there's the catalog. Her song catalog, featuring over 3,000 compositions, including I Will Always Love You, is valued at roughly $120 million. Every time her music is streamed, covered, or used in a film, the royalties flow directly back into the Parton estate. That income does not stop when an artist dies. It grows. Elvis Presley's estate still earns tens of millions every year. Michael Jackson's estate makes more now than it did when he was alive. Dolly Parton's music catalog, owned entirely by the Parton estate, will almost certainly follow the same trajectory, earning money for decades to come, for whoever or whatever she left it to. Now here is a question worth asking. If you had $650 million and no children to leave it to, what would you do with it? Most people, if they're honest, probably imagine a private island, a fleet of private jets, generational wealth handed to distant relatives they barely know. Dolly Parton imagined something different. She imagined every child in the world getting a free book in the mail every single month. And then she made it happen. The Parton Legacy Machine. The thing about Dolly Parton's fortune is that it was never really just money. It was fuel. fuel for an engine she had been building her entire life, an engine designed to keep running long after she was gone. "Even after I'm gone, we'll still grow, we'll still be going," she said of Dollywood's legacy. "We have a great, great team, and we have a lot of dreamers, a lot of doers. We just dream and think, what do we want? We don't want things that's just going to last a season or two. We want things to be lasting." Lasting. That was always the goal. Not famous, not rich, lasting. And the Imagination Library will last. Each month, the book gifting program mails free books to children from birth to age 5, regardless of their family's income. Though Parton had no children, she was a mother figure to children around the world. The program operates in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Ireland. It is now embedded in the infrastructure of childhood literacy in multiple countries. It does not need Dolly Parton to be alive in order to keep working. She built it that way on purpose. With 11 Grammys and a humanitarian Oscar, her impact on music and philanthropy is immeasurable. The humanitarian Oscar, the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, was awarded to Parton in 2025. She was named the 2025 recipient of that honorary award for her unwavering dedication to helping others, an award that exists specifically for those who have used their platform not to elevate themselves, but to elevate others. Dolly Parton also received the Carnegie Medal of Philanthropy, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and holds honorary doctorates from multiple universities. She was recognized by the state of Tennessee with her own official holiday. There is a statue of her in Sevierville. A replica of her childhood cabin sits inside Dollywood. The world, in other words, has already spent decades building monuments to the girl from the mountain cabin. And yet, despite all of that, despite the Grammys, the Oscar, the statue, and the holiday, the most enduring monument Dolly Parton ever erected is invisible. It exists in the minds of the children who learned to read because a free book showed up in their mailbox every month. Children who grew up in poverty, just like she did, but who had something she never had, a head start, the family left behind. Dolly Parton was one of 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls, raised in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. By the time she died, she had already outlived several of her siblings. Her older brother David passed away in November 2024. Her brother Floyd and others had preceded her as well. The family she leaves behind is large, sprawling, and deeply intertwined with her business empire. Many of her nieces and nephews have been involved in her businesses and personal life, some working at Dollywood, others as part of her personal entourage. Her nephew, Brian Seaver, served as her head of security for over 2 decades, following in the footsteps of his own father, Larry, who held the role before him. These are not distant relatives who encountered Dolly Parton at holiday dinners. These are people who built their lives around her, who protected her, worked for her, and loved her. And now, they are the ones left to grieve, to manage an estate worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and to carry forward a legacy that, if it is handled with even a fraction of her wisdom, could continue changing lives for generations to come. The tears you heard about in the title of this video? They are real. They are the tears of people who did not just lose a famous aunt. They lost the person who held everything together, the person who turned nothing into everything, and then spent the rest of her life trying to share that everything with the world. The tin can microphone. Here is the image I want to leave you with. A little girl, a tobacco stick microphone, a one-room cabin in the Tennessee mountains. No electricity, no running water. 11 siblings sleeping in the same space. A father who couldn't read. A family that couldn't afford a doctor's bill, paying it instead with cornmeal. From that girl came $650 million. From that one-room cabin came Dollywood, a global literacy program, an Academy of Arts and Sciences Humanitarian Award, 3,000 songs, 11 Grammys, 48 albums, over 100 million records sold, and 270 million free books in the hands of children who might, just might, grow up to do something just as extraordinary. Despite some people calling her white trash and hillbilly, Dolly remained proud of her background. She explained, "To me, that keeps you humble, that keeps you good, and it doesn't matter how hard you try to forget where you came from." She never forgot, not for a single day. And that refusal to forget is what made every single dollar she earned mean something far greater than money. Dolly Parton didn't leave behind a fortune that made her family cry because of its size. She left behind a fortune that made them cry because of what it represented. The proof that a child born with absolutely nothing can build absolutely everything, and then choose deliberately, consciously, generously to give most of it back. The music will keep playing. The books will keep arriving in mailboxes. The park will keep drawing 3 million visitors a year to the mountains where she grew up dreaming. And somewhere, right now, a child who has never heard the name Dolly Parton is opening a free book that arrived in their mailbox this morning. And maybe, just maybe, it will be the book that changes everything for them. Just like a tin can microphone changed everything for her. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, because this channel tells the stories that actually matter. We'll see you in the next one.